your relationship, Jamie, with Elizabeth. I've said this many times before at functions as well, where, wow, to have a husband who is so supportive, who is walking this journey with his wife in such an incredible way, it blows my mind. So, Liz, tell everybody, how did all of this come about? How did you end up with Jamie? And then, Jamie, I would love for you to share with everybody your first impressions of Liz and what happened after that.
Can we censor everything?
Hi, we're censoring.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Wow, where does one start? Well, firstly, when I met Jamie, I was 42. And I hadn't been married before, so everybody had given up on me. Hey, I was like, my mother turned the hope chest into a hopeless chest. And I'd come to a place where I really realize that you've got to be happy before you meet someone, because you're always expecting someone else to make you happy or whatever. And I saw all my married friends with the babies and the progeros and the homes, and they were wishing they were single and coming to me and crying on my shoulder. And then my single friends were unhappy, waiting for this man with hairy legs to fulfill their lives. And I thought, oh my goodness, nobody's happy here. And I really set out to find that happiness from within and through my faith in Jesus. And it happened where I couldn't fake it anymore. I was like, I had my trauma, and I found that peace. And I thought, you know what, I actually don't care anymore if I get married or not. So I didn't have this desperation written on my forehead, which so many women have when you are just lonely and it's time, hello, 42. Anyway, so then I had this book. I had an ending to the book, because you can imagine this incredible story of this love of my life that I met in Israel, and he was just my everything and losing everything. And then, wondering, having, I'm losing thread of my story because that's typical of me.
No, I think, tell us a little bit more, because the listeners out there might not know.
Yes, because
the
that's
full
where
story.
I want to go back to,
yes.
Because what I love about this book, the whole book, The Choice, is about you going to Judaism and things like that. And you met the love of your life that you thought in
that's right.
And then you were willing to Magai and all of
Yes,
that.
that's it.
So it's a beautiful love story. But the real love story that I love is you and Jamie.
Okay, got you. Yes.
Yeah, so you were willing to give up your Christianity to a point.
Yes.
And then...
Yeah, okay. So let's retrack, okay?
Yes.
Do you mind?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So then,
Let's start at the start.
let's start at the very beginning. Yes, I fell in love with this Orthodox Jewish man, and I was a young girl in my 20s, I was 27, whatever, and he was the stoic, he was my polar opposite. I was this wild child artist living in Jerusalem, working at the Christian embassy. So, I was just in my zone having a ball, and in walked this very religious, stoic, very educated, highly educated Jewish man. He was in his 30s at the time, and basically told us all to go home, leave the Jews alone, enough damage done in the name of your God, and Israel's for the Jew. What are you doing here? Yeah. Anyway, so, truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, and we ended up a rapport, but he was not looking to chat up some lady that, this was not girl boy thing. This was, he couldn't understand what made me come and live in Israel amongst people that aren't my own and love them. He clearly could see, and my love and passion for Jerusalem was out the box. He saw my artwork, and we went on a quest, like, what makes this woman tick? Yes. And he ended up becoming a believer in Jesus, which was like a freak out to his family. And of course, then the onus was put on me that I was the one to poison his mind, or, convert him, as it were, where I had nothing to do with that part of it, because, I hardly knew my Bible in those days. I was just like this, spirit girl, and someone, knew the odd scripture, but I couldn't chapter and verse him. Long story short, we ended up falling in love, and his parents ended up contacting like a religious police. They to stop assimilation, people going into other faiths. So I don't blame his parents. I would have, if I was them, I would have also put them onto me.
Yes.
So anyway, they ended up finding a loophole. I forgot to renew my visa. I mean, and I was so heady and in love. The last thing I thought of was to go and renew my visa, and they had me there. And then they deported me. They didn't give me a chance. No, nothing. And that was their thing. So I was deported, and now we were just believing and feeling like, for me to be his wife and to marry, I would have to embrace Judaism. And there's a scripture in the New Testament that says, if to be a Jew, be a Jew to a Jew, a Greek to a Greek, be all things to all men to win them to Christ. I thought, well, if this is my calling, I was willing to come under the Hebrew, like the Jewish laws, to marry him, that we could be together and hopefully have an influence from within, and be a light there. But so that was my little fleece. But Father, I'll never deny you. Your Jesus. Yes. So that was my little fleece. It's worth going for it. So anyway, I was deported, studied back here in South Africa.
But you were here for 2 years.
No, I was there. I was deported from Israel, right?
Yes.
Then I was sent, obviously came back home.
Yes.
And then I started my conversion course here.
And that was 2 years?
Yes, 2 and something. It was almost 2.5 years studying Judaism. Yeah. Well, no cell phones in those days, right?
Yes.
So it was just letters, these beautiful romantic letters. And we ended up, the rabbis just being enthralled with me, because there's this young, vibrant girl loving Judaism and the Jews, and I was very Zionistic, so it was like this breath of fresh air. Yeah. Oh wow, this girl's we need her type of thing. And so I just fitted in, because a lot of the times I look Jewish, right? And the one rabbi at a Passover meal, he's invited to the chief rabbi for Passover, and sitting next to this little old Jewish man, and he was looking at me saying, and so when is your husband going to convert? So I said, no, Rabbi. I said, I'm the one converting. He says, no. He says, you look Jewish. You talk Jewish. God must have made a mistake.
I love that.
So they were like, God really hasn't made a mistake, So they fast-tracked my conversion to the point where they arranged a wedding. I was wow. This is like God, Yeah. And never did they ask me about Jesus. One day there was a slippery slope where the rabbi asked me if I pray before I paint. And of course I said, sure, I need some help now and again, So he said, but who to? Whoa. Weirdo question. I said, to God, he said, what God? Because there's very, very different gods out there. So I said, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then I was like, going bright red and sweating. I thought, oh my God, here we go. And he said, but through who? Through the Holy Spirit, so I like skating. Anyway, he looked at me and he said, I'm going to leave it at that. And he left the room. And I thought, that's on thank you God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so I thought, oh my goodness, this guy knows something, but he's not coming out with it, So I thought, God, you're just amazing. So then Aaron came out for the wedding, because now we hadn't seen each other for 2.5 years, and
so now the wedding is
The date, the 9th of August was the date. That was in 1987.
Yeah.
And so he came out. Now they had to meet him, and then I'd have to do my last final exam, because it was so off the charts. It wasn't a usual kind of conversion, Yeah. And because I had such an interest in Judaism and I loved it so much, and I was seeing the parallels between true Christianity and the Hebraic way, because Jesus was a Jew. Hello,
yes.
He came and he was fulfilling the Jewish law. So all the festivals were his festivals that he came to fulfill. So I was like, joining the dots and blowing my mind and thinking, am I the only one seeing this, And I thought maybe it's because I'm just in love and I'm going nuts. And my mother was saying, Elizabeth, this man has made you go crazy, You mean to say you're abandoning your whole Christian walk? I said, Mom, no, I'm discovering the bedrock of it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's not abandoning, it's enriching. And she just couldn't understand, bless her heart. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Anyway, long and the short of it, I ended up him coming out. It was amazing. All the rabbis could see what caliber of a man he was. And so this was a match made in heaven. They were even fascinated. And anyway, they ended up where I was caught between a rock and a hard place. The last question before I was going to the mikvah, which is a place where you go and get like baptized. It's a kind of a going underwater, and you get your new Jewish name and you become an Israelite, and you say a prayer like the prayer of Ruth, your people, my people, your God, my God. And that last portal call, the rabbi basically got all the other rabbis to sit down because there was one last question, and I thought it was what cars would be going into the mikvah. I mean, it was like we were out of there, this is like, whoa.
It's done deal.
Yeah, I mean, done deal. Mm-hmm. And Aaron, they just thought he was the best thing since, gefilte fish. yeah, move over, slice bread. So anyway, so then we were going to the mikveh. I was like in total denial, and the whole atmosphere in the room became like a tin can with the air squashed out of it, because there was just the silence. And this rabbi who'd been my tutor, he said, Elizabeth, you know how much I love you, and we're going to miss you so much. But now that you're this close from becoming an Israelite, who is Jesus Christ? And like a bomb went off. Of course, Aaron jumped to my defense. He said, excuse me, what has Jesus Christ got to do with this? According to the Jewish law, the halakha, no convert is required to give an answer about who Jesus is. Yeah. And they said, you're right. You're quite right. But Elizabeth has to give an answer of who she believes he is. Is he just a prophet? Is he the Messiah to her? Who is he to her? Yeah. So, of course, I was just in a flood of tears. And they asked us to really leave the room, and they decided to give me 4 hours to make up my mind, because my whole life hinged on this answer.
Massive.
Yeah,
massive
so
decision.
of course.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
honestly, both legs.
And I mean, two young people in love with dreams. I've been together. They'd bought us an apartment already. They'd already bought me a car. I mean, I was going back home to Israel. It was everything. Like God had made a mistake with me. That's where I belonged. So I had no plan B. This was it. Yeah. And all of a sudden, to have your faith challenged and your faith in Jesus, like now in the balance. And choosing between the man of your dreams and the man and your savior, whoa. Yeah. It was a scary slope to be on. And anyway, long and the short of it, after 4 hideous hours, I crawled back into that room, and even the rabbis, there had been 5. There always has to be an odd number for a vote in Judaism, which is clever. Yeah. So the one didn't come because he said he didn't want to see a girl sell her soul, because they all picked up this was a big issue for this young woman, and she's going to lie to marry this man. So he decided he didn't want to be part of this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so when we sat there, they were all like, this was not some hideous, like, let's get this girl at the last minute. They were touched to the core. I mean, their eyes were, wet with like, my goodness, what's happening here? And my rabbi clearly off the charts concerned, because it was, at the end of the day, it was God. But anyway, so then he said, Elizabeth, what is your final answer? And I had no preempted idea, I'm going to do this and this. I was so shredded, so gutted. I mean, it was like dead girl walking. I was going to the gallows. And I ended up asking if I could just go on my knees. I don't know why, but it was to me such a holy moment, because I was actually going to sacrifice myself and my dreams. And I just told them who Jesus was. And I said, he died for you and you and you. His blood atones for the world's sins. And I thought, I just wept and wept. And I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in that room. It was like arrested with the presence, And then, of course, the rabbi came over to us, and Aaron was just holding me and rocking me, and he whispered in my ear, and he said, I am so proud of you. He said, you truly are the girl I thought you were, and I love you even more. We will make a way, and, well, whatever. So then the rabbi came, and he just said, Elizabeth, I don't know what's happening. He said, your faith, you have a gift, and it's called faith. And you, my girl, I'm going to keep my eyes on you, because God's going to use you somehow down the line. I mean, at the time, you don't want to know what you're going to do. I mean, you're just so dead and, devastated. Anyway, he said, maybe God will send you back to your people, and you need to teach them of their Hebraic roots. I mean, hello. How he came up with that. But anyway, at the time, I just wanted to smack his lights out. That was the last place I wanted to go back. I just want to get out of here. Yeah. And anyway, he was prophetic, long run. Anyway, so whenever I went after this big saga, I became like the coffee morning Skinner.
I can imagine.
Yeah, whenever I walked over, there she goes, like I had leprosy. I mean, they didn't know whether to say hello or hi or run or, what to say to this poor girl. Anyway, I ended up, eventually people say, you got to write a book. Oh my God, this makes a movie. You got to write a book. Yeah. Well, I heard it too many times. I thought, you know what, being dyslexic and not being able to even spell my name, I mean, write a book, you're crazy, But, then I thought, hang on, doesn't God choose those sort of people to write a book?
Exactly, exactly.
And use his strength.
Absolutely.
And so my mother,
I was going to say, and here enters.
Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Jamie.
Exactly.
And so you see, God always has a plan. And those out there that have lost hope after something's hit a brick wall, believe you me, if you've had suicidal tendencies after something like that, don't, because there is a plan.
Yes.
And it's way beyond what we can imagine. And the horrible comments, like people, so they don't mean it. It's just their heart. Oh, don't worry, my darling. There's so many other fish in the sea.
Yes.
You don't want another fish in the sea. Exactly. Just let the girl heal.
Exactly.
But boy, 14 long years. I mean, all my friends were walking down the aisle the second time with a third kid.
Okay, now we fast forward.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Handsome Jamie enters.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, by that stage, as I said earlier, the hope chest became the hopeless chest. My mother was offering me facelifts, saying, maybe, oh my darling, you've been through so much trauma. Maybe that's why you haven't got married. You're very lined, I said, thanks, Ma. Thanks a lot, So I even went and got quotes, like, hello. And then you thought, you know what? Somebody's going to have to love me warts and all because I can't handle this one, forget it. This is it. Well, else it's not worth
Brilliant.
it,
And now I feel we need to cross over to Jamie. And Jamie, firstly, when the manuscript was placed in your hands and you read it, we would love to know what were your thoughts firstly, and how did it actually come to you? How did this happen? How did you get the manuscript in your hands?
I was invited, and Liz was invited to a bring and share with a whole lot of Christians, which is not kind of my favorite thing. But anyway, and then the guy said, look, fetch Liz, because I lived in Camps Bay and she was in Bantry Bay, whatever. So I picked her up and we just, it was amazing. I just took my little son, 6-7-year-old. So I thought, you know what, I'll just have a snack and go off the beach and let him boogie board. And Liz and I just started talking. It was like we had known each other all of our lives. I discovered that she was from the Eastern Cape, from Queenstown. In fact, she was born in Queenstown. Yes. I grew up in Queenstown on a farm. Her parents farmed down the road from us. And nobody ever knew, but I had a secret desire hidden, embarrassingly maybe, in my heart, but I just wanted an Eastern Cape farmer's daughter as a wife.
Yes.
So anyway, we went to Blouberg, and I don't want to be too long, but it was just fascinating. I just got up from the table and said, I want to go down to the beach, and I had a tennis ball, which I was throwing to my son, and I threw the ball and he caught it. The next thing, Liz says, so what about me? I said, you? Okay, anyway, whatever, go, So I just threw the ball very high. And she runs, and I mean, geen skaamte nie. She just runs and she catches the ball behind her back.
Wow.
Hello.
A woman of many talents.
I think some of the Protea cricketers could learn a bit from her, so maybe she must be the catching coach. So we just knocked it off, and then obviously I was invited there to pick up for the manuscript. I had my own company. I owned a bookshop in Cape Town, Christian bookshop, called El Shaddai, and I had another wholesale publishing company. So Trudy Drup, who we were chatting about earlier on, she brought Liz round, and about 8 years prior to that, and I just sent Liz packing. She came with a notebook kind of thing with little scrappy pieces of paper, and that was her manuscript. So I told her to get lost, and she thought I was very arrogant and very managing director kind of guy. And anyway, long story short, I got the manuscript. Liz has always been very cheeky, and very passionate about everything. So she said, you can have it for 3 days. I said, excuse me, it takes 6 months to get an answer, So I thought, kind of going through a separation, a divorce at the time, which divorce wasn't ever in my books an option. But anyway, stuff happens in your life, and God takes even your brokenness and whatever it is and restores it. But I then got a thought in my head, wait a minute, the only food I eat at night is what I cook, and that's either baked beans or scrambled egg or a boiled egg, or maybe even oats. But so I said, Liz, cool, I'll come around and cook a meal, and I'll have some supper with you, and we'll chat. So I read the manuscript, and like you were saying earlier on, when I read that manuscript, it was about 1, 2 in the morning when I was finishing it, like yourself. But then I had to read it because the next day, and I worked in Wellington for Lux Verbi, which was part of the NG Kerk bookshop and stuff, and at Bible Media. So anyway, I read the manuscript, and I never will ever forget lying there and saying, God, Father, Jesus, if you ever got a woman for me, because, I want a woman with this kind of courage and guts, and that's why on the book, The Choice, the subtitle says, a woman who dared to believe God. And it's really been a challenge for us, encouraging other people. We dare you to trust God. We dare you to make the choice that you know is right. So, I read the manuscript. I went back to her, and
That wasn't your kind or type.
Oh, but we're getting there.
Yes. We're waiting with bated breath. I'm sure everyone.
We want to hear everything.
Every last detail.
Well, I don't know, the time factor always, but that night Liz was very, it must have just been God, because she took me, said, come, let's go and have a snack and a snack and a glass of wine, and we sat on the rocks down at Saunders Rocks in Bantry Bay. Now, Liz didn't know, but my dad lived up the road in Saunders Road, and he taught me to swim when I was 6 years old in that pool, that ocean pool, and I loved watching the sunset. So we watched the sunset, and then it got cold, so Liz says to me she's got a circulation problem. Now, this was like, okay, now where are we going with this one? This chick's...
That's a new pickup line.
Yeah, she's a very good pickup line. So she says, but can I just... cuddle a bit. I'm cold. So, I got such a shock.
I mean, in her defense, she waited 14 years for you. In her defense.
You're too young for me to share the other details, but we'll keep it for another time when we're off the air.
I think I have to also just share with you, Jamie is a very good-looking man. And Liz has always said he is my Marlboro man. So you can just imagine. She was like, yes, honey, I have circulation problems.
I'm going to use that from now on. Circulation.
Anyway, so we were sitting on the rock. I got such a shock that I fell over backwards. And as I went over backwards, I kicked the wine bottle over, and it rolled down in the glass and smashed in the rocks. And I thought to myself, oh, dear Lord, no. Somewhere in my memory banks, I remembered that the Jews at a wedding broke a glass as the final...
We all watched Yentel.
So I thought, Jesus, ek is in groot moeilikheid nou. The glass smashed, the bottle smashed, and we ended up walking up the road, and we were holding hands. I don't know how that even happened. Normally, when you're young, it's like...
Our hands were cold.
Circulation problem, probably. Anyway, we just, we hit it off, and it was amazing, and I just obviously started to see another side to Liz, and like you guys have said, Loui, that the book, I was a Christian book publisher and distributor. I had 6,000 titles that I distributed, and I'd worked for 25 years in that industry. So I knew books inside out. I knew all the authors overseas and everything. And the book really, really touched me at a very deep core level. It probably was even more of an impact because I was going through a divorce at the time, and it was very, very difficult. I had 2 young light lammetjies. But anyway, our relationship grew, so I came around again for supper because I was desperate for a meal.
What was served? I want to know. I want to know all the details.
What was served?
You're not allowed to say.
Well, I must admit, it's the first time that I ever in my life battled to chew pasta. because it felt like kind of reinforced steel or something. But anyway.
No, I have to now interject because a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So Liz, you must be quite something if you got to his heart and you couldn't cook.
Yeah, no, this was a miracle.
But it really was just God, and I think we just, and then Valentine's night came up, and I hadn't done a Valentine thing for 34 years. I never really understood that Liz hated Valentine's night because all these weirdos would ask her out.
Yeah.
So she was sick of all these weird Christian men.
Yeah.
I was petrified of all these Christian women out there.
How long is this now into the relationship? Like
this is like 3-4 days.
It sounds like forever. I know. I was actually going to interrupt just now and say it sounds like you've been together for months here, and we know that it was like so quick how everything happened.
Yeah.
So please go on.
Yeah, well, basically, Liz, when a guy starts telling a story, then the wife always interjects with the facts.
Yeah.
We kind of don't know dates and times. But all I do remember that it was probably the Tuesday that I went round for supper, and Thursday, which is 2 days later or 3 days later, was Valentine's night.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at this table. First of all, we went for a picnic. Liz thought I was very mean and Scottish because I asked her to go and buy stuff for the picnic, and I said we can split it. So she thought, oh my God, now I'm marrying a real Jew. But a Scotsman and a Jew about the same with that stuff. But anyway, so we went and we were just talking. The sun went down, it was freezing. I said, I'm a King's kid, we'll get a restaurant. We went to Dunes restaurant, which is right on the beachfront in Hout Bay, packed out, but one table left for two. So we sat down, and I'm looking at Liz. Now, bear in mind, I've just read the book, literally 3 nights before that. And I was deeply touched, and her pain and everything she went through. So I'm looking at her, and my thing in life is I just so love the presence of God and His love.
Yes.
And all I want to do is tell people how much, but they would experience it, not theoretically, but actually in your emotions kind of deal. So I looked at Liz and we were chatting, and all of a sudden I just felt like I was in a cocoon. I was like cut off, and I was pummeled from all sides in my mind with God's kind of love for Liz. I just felt His overwhelming love that I started to get tears in my eyes, not for my love for Liz. At that point it wasn't. It was fascinating, but I wasn't quite sure. But then, anyway, the next thing, I'm sitting there and my mouth opens, and I got the shock of my life. This guy says, Elizabeth Hayes Robertson, will you marry me in Jerusalem? Well, when Jerusalem came out my mouth, I nearly fell off my chair. Because all I remember about Liz, and we'll get there in a second, was I thought she had a virus, not COVID-19, but worse, Israelitis. And she was this girl, supposed to be a Christian, more Jewish than the Jews, and I was, in a way, very nervous. But, yeah, you can imagine after kicking over the glass what it was like. But Liz was such an awesome, rustige, precious person, and we were just so knitted together with all our common interests. I love tennis. She was good at tennis. Her forehand is mean. She always just takes me out. And hiking, etc., etc. So, yeah, I'm sitting there that night in the restaurant, and then Liz looks at me, and I can see she's like, and I don't know why.
You spoke these words?
Yes.
In this public restaurant.
In
yeah.
Jerusalem.
And then I sat down, went on my knees, and I repeated myself. Now, as you can hear today, my voice is quite loud, so I normally don't use a microphone. But anyway, and she looked, and then Liz can share it maybe, but it was just, I could see the emotion in her, and just suddenly stuff flying across her mind. I mean, now what is happening? I mean, I've known this guy for 3 days.
Yes.
Or whatever it was, maybe it was 7 days. I can't. It was just within a week anyway.
But literally your 3rd or 4th date.
Yeah, but the 3rd time that
Not even a date.
it wasn't even a date. It was just to get out there. But as you were saying, Martez, Liz wasn't my type. I mean, we used to go to certain
No, don't go there.
Christian meetings.
Really, not overshare.
Elizabeth, guys, we've been married for 20 years. The longer you're married, the more your wife interferes. But I just saw Liz. We'll share it afterwards. I imagined Liz as this real, like a blowrookie. The Afrikaners will understand what a blowrookie is. They wear big panties and stuff and very old funny clothes. And so I really thought, and then she's into this whole Jewish thing, which I've subsequently realized very clearly is not. It's God's strategies, it's God's plans, it's God's ways, it's His instructions on how we must live, and it's for our best interests. Yes. But yeah, I must admit, I then slowly started to realize I got to honor my wife and not share the other details, which were very interesting, because I then certainly discovered certain items of clothing that clearly indicated that Liz was not a blowrookie. So when she went for a run on the beach to catch the ball, she said, I tucked my skirt up. So I said, into what? So this is a radio quiz. So if you phone in and you answer that question correctly, we will give you a free book. So I don't know what else you want.
I love it. So Liz, I think we need to hear from you when this practical stranger says that he wants to marry you. I mean, yes. What were your thoughts?
What were you thinking?
Not a lot. Well, being 42 and having had some proposals, my mom had been married 3 times and so had my father. So marriage was a big deal for me. It had to be a God thing or else I wasn't interested.
Yes.
And every other proposal, it was just a no-go zone. It was just like no peace. I didn't care that I was in my 30s or 40. I couldn't care what your friends were saying. It was just no go.
Yes.
I wasn't desperate. And there was just, and some of the proposals were fantastic. People were saying, "You're looking a gift horse in the mouth. What are you doing? Are you you land up on the shelf?" But I just knew I needed to feel something.
Yes.
Yeah. And when Jamie proposed, but now you've got to remember, I didn't say over the radio, but in the book, there was a time in my life where I sold out to Jesus. I said, that's it. I don't care if I never get married. He actually asked me to lay that right down as a woman to get married, which meant never having children as well. It was a huge thing. I was no speaks with God for about 3 weeks to get my head around it. Because I just thought, how can you ask me this of me when all the taps are on? I'm just a normal, lovely woman who wants to be loved, and you asking me to go celibate? No. So I fought with God and I said, well, then you're going to have to turn off the taps and make me fall in love with you all over again, that I don't need anyone.
Yes.
And it was a hard prayer because I actually didn't want it.
Yeah.
And you have to actually realize you don't love him with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. You actually love being married or something else other than him. And it was a horrible realization, but God's so amazing how he shows you that it's okay. Just confess it and I'll give you the love. Everything has to come from him.
Yes.
You can't love him with your own love. It's always got a ceiling to it. It's always, it has to come from him. So he literally baptized me in his love again for him, that it didn't matter. It was like I sold out. I found the pearl of great price and I didn't care anymore. But I was so okay, single and satisfied. And that's when I met Jamie, with the book. I had the end of my book and everything. So I was like completely, what was the question?
What was your thoughts when Jamie proposed?
Yeah, so then, exactly. So now I'm there. I was off to Italy. I had after this book that I'd written, I'd sort of fulfilled that mandate now. It was clearly God saying, write down my story. I was out of there. I was off to Italy to visit my sister who lived there, and happy chappy, tickets booked for 3 months. I was gone. And so when he comes, I thought, rather gorgeous, but I mean, I wasn't looking, and I mean, shame, he's going through a divorce. Sorry for you, but I'm out of here, but can you maybe help me with my book? So that night at the restaurant, there was absolutely just business on my mind. So when he came out with this thing, I was completely...
This thing where he proposes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just that little thing. I mean, I just had this wave of peace. Like, it was like a fast forward video in my mind. This is my gift back to you. The 5 children that he had, you usually pole vault in the other direction if a guy has 1 child, let alone not 5. And it was just not viable. In the natural, if you're thinking with your logical mind, it's a no-go zone. But this was spirit. And just his proposal was there was such an unction of God's Holy Spirit, so much peace that I knew God was saying, this is my gift.
Yes.
And walking this now and being married for 20 years, it only gets better.
Yes.
I've never had such an incredible experience of a marriage that grows better with time.
Yes.
And all of these beautiful children, in the beginning it was quite a nightmare because they were, broken, people hurt other people, and they were all devastated by the divorce. Who isn't? What child isn't?
Kids are always going to be
word. I mean,
with
I came from a broken home, so I mean, I was, anything to get my folks back together,
Yes.
I'd have been, but sometimes it's just meant to be. And right now, I have the most incredible relationship with all 5 of them. Yes, and it's just been incredible how God has joined Jamie not only for companionship but for purpose and destiny. Yes. Because no other man would have been able to carry this story where I end up talking 80% about another man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Any other man would be freaked out. But it's morphed from Aaron and Liz because that is so not meant. Aaron was a teacher to me, a foundation. Yeah. For the future.
The stepping stone
That's
to your
right.
real true love.
Yes, that erotica, that eros love, it's over.
Yes.
And that he will always have a special place in my heart, just like a person who you love dies. You'll never stop loving that person, but you lock them in a chamber in your heart, you move on and maybe marry someone else. It's where I'll never stop loving Aaron, in that measure, but he wasn't meant to be my husband.
I totally agree with you because I mean, you will always. I think if you don't still love that person, I love
you never
my
did.
ex-husband and the boyfriend before. That's about it. But I mean, then it wasn't worth all the real true love that you had, and also it was stepping stones.
That's right.
To prepare you for the real love of your life, which is Jamie.
Exactly. And even Jamie's ex-wife, Precious, if he didn't have a relationship with her and treat her with respect and honor, he never loved her in the first place.
Exactly.
And they spent 39 years together or something ridiculous. So if you have that hatred now, no speaks, I feel sorry for you, and I really would urge all those maybe listening, that if you have, it's not necessary. It's not necessary to be at war.
Yeah.
And that's where you've got to reconcile at some kind of a level for the kids.
Yes.
Because they feel it. It only impacts the family.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Jamie, he's a big man when it comes to having handled the aftermath and carrying this story forward because he sees the big picture that it's no longer between a young girl called Liz and Aaron, it's about Jew and Gentile. Yes. And that incredible love story, what God is doing now in the dispensation of things, because before Jesus can come back, there has to be the synergy between Jewish people and Christians.
Yes.
We have to find each other.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So this is the mantle going forward, the mandate going forward.
And now that you're on that subject, you give quite a lot of talks, Liz, and well, you are also part of those talks, Jamie. Tell us a little bit more about your. Literally, I mean, you've been welcomed with open arms into synagogues to give talks. I attended one of those. Yeah. Tell us, well, a few of those actually. Yeah. So tell us a bit about that, and then I would like you to tell us about the movie. What is happening now after the book?
Have we got another 3 hours, guys? Yes, I think my studying Judaism and becoming part of the Jewish community here in Cape Town specifically, after the big drama and I became the coffee story gossip session, they realized that I was actually who I never changed, and my love for the Jewish people remained, and I still used to go to synagogue because it didn't stop me from loving them and being part of them, you know, even though now I was out the closet, as it were, as a believer in Jesus, and that was, you know, it was actually a relief, you know, because now they knew who I was, you know, it wasn't me trying to be a Jew and having abandoned my faith. No, I was open-faced. Yes. And yet they saw me as one of them. So then I was invited by a Jewish organization called WITSO, Women's International Zionist Organization, to be part of them. So I started my branch for Christian women to join this all-Jewish women's group that has been around for 100 years. So they are very reputable. They are global. They are huge. They raise millions of dollars a year to send to women and children at risk in Israel, because Israel's like no other nation. They also suffer huge problems, social problems, economical problems. You think Jewish people, they're all rich and, you know, got it together. No, they are like any other nation and society where there's huge issues. So the Bible is clear. If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And if you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. Yeah. So it's just a wonderful way that we can stick alongside our Jewish sisters. And it's wonderful because we have Shabbats together, because I learned all about their festivals. Yes. So you're educated, you know. And so Jamie and I do a lot of what the rabbi said I would do, go back to my people and teach them of their Hebraic roots. But a la Jesus, you know, it's not us, because I experienced rabbinical Judaism, and I'm not talking about that. Yes. I'm talking about Mosaic Judaism, which is what Jesus lived. He was even angry at the rabbis of the day. He said, "You brood of vipers, you know, you make laws and tie nooses around people's neck that you yourselves can't even keep and obey." It was man-made rules added to the rules of God, or the ordinances. And that even is in Christianity. We have a lot of man-made rules that you think are godly, but they're actually not God. They're man-made rules. Yes. Right. So that's what we do. We end up giving talks to Jewish people, Christian people, and you then sort of adapt your story for the crowd. You know, obviously, when I go to Jewish people, it's so wonderful. They're the ones then, you know, the Bible's clear. It says, you know, give an account of your faith whenever you asked for an account. So you are the gospel. You don't go and sprout it out. You just live it, and they come to you and say, "What is it about you?" You know, and then in them asking, "Why do you have so much hope and faith and energy and passion?" You know, and you get a chance to share your faith. Yeah, and that's beautiful because they've asked you. You know, absolutely. So that's our modus operandi, as it were. It's living the gospel. And
maybe the concept is very
yes,
and
the book.
Oh yes, the
Shabbat Shalom.
Oh yeah. Then after this, my book that I wrote and met Jamie, I wrote another book called Shabbat Shalom and All That Jazz. What's it got to do with me? And I love that. Yeah, title. It's gorgeous. And the cover, I do cartooning, so I did the cover with me. Like, you know, you always end up drawing yourself. It wasn't meant to be me, but people say that's you. I don't know. Okay, like holding a challah, you know, the bread they eat in a Shabbat, like looking at it, is like, what the hell? And Jamie's like looking through the shofar instead of blowing it, like, you know, clueless. And it's basically sharing the Hebraic way a la Jesus, and how we fit him into this big picture of God's, the Bible, and God's love letter to mankind, which is the Bible. Yes. And he everything he gave was to the Jew and those that join themselves with the Jew. It's us adopted into the household of God, you know. So it's, and then the concert, then while I was in the beginning of our marriage, we were going to Joburg. In the plan, I got this open vision of joining the two communities, Jewish and Christian, through the arts. Me being an artist and having a lot of friends that are musicians and whatever, I saw this open vision, and I said to Jamie, I can't believe it. I've just seen this like open, like auditorium with Jews and Christians worshiping God together, and artwork and poetry and singing. And I said, what is this? So then Jamie said, I think this is God. And we ended up putting legs to it, thinking, okay, let's test the water. And over these last 12 years, we've had 6 of these concerts, and each one gets bigger and bigger, because in the beginning, the Jewish folk didn't trust us at all. They thought we were going to come with a left hook and come and, have a praise and worship session and, try and shove Jesus down their throat, where God has given us a clear mandate, that our mandate is to comfort Him, our people, and provoke them to a jealousy with the things that are theirs, and that is our love for their God, a love for the city of God, and that's Jerusalem, a love for the word of God which has been given to them, and in that provoking them to that jealousy, they feel like, oh, how come you know our scriptures more than us? How come you love Jerusalem like that? How come you? And it provokes them to turn back to God, because many Jews have become secular and God schmodge, they just bumble on, and they have their ordinances, they have their customs, but God's running the cosmos. You don't pray to Him like you Christians do for a parking lot, it's a way of life for most Jews. It's not a faith or a relationship. So when they see your relationship with God, they want it. And how do you say it? And then somehow, somewhere, you tell them, you invite Him into your life, and it's by the Holy Spirit. So God does it.
I think awesome. We are running out of time, but I'm sure they won't mind if we have another 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
Please, so that's okay, because I'm dying to hear about this movie.
Oh, boy.
So when I met Liz all those years back, I mentioned that this book needs to be made into a movie. And Liz told me when I chatted to her about it, she says, no, we've got, producers from the States coming out and that's where I got involved with the process, but kind of by default, because I think I was really there to hold Liz's hand. The one day she actually phoned a mutual friend, and this friend said, oh my gosh, guess who's sitting next to me? And she had just asked me, when last have you spoken to Liz? And hello, the phone rings and it's Liz. And
That's so crazy.
And she goes, well, guess who's sitting next to me, Liz? And she goes, who? She's Martez.
Oh.
So Liz was like, oh, that's the person I need to speak to. I was like, okay. She goes, will you come and hold my hand? I've got a meeting. Just come and hold my hand. I was like, I will absolutely hold your hand. And from that meeting,
we haven't let it go.
I love that. It's been awesome, absolutely awesome.
That.
And I got to work with the incredible Romano Gourlay, who's a director-producer.
He will also be on our show.
He will also
shortly.
be on our show shortly.
Great.
He just said yes. And we did the teaser together for The Choice. And then I went my merry way. And then I got a call from Liz probably, 2 years ago. It was just little bit before COVID. Got a call to say, guess what? We've got this amazing Israeli director attached. Would you like to come and have dinner with us? He's coming to South Africa, and just come for dinner. And you have the floor after that, Liz, because so much has happened since then. Tell us about the developments.
Yeah, wow. You know what's been my lodestar? The thing that's kept Jamie now going is, well, maybe more me, but because when I was commissioning the editor of my book, she wanted to hear the story from my mouth instead of just only the script. So I was telling her in a coffee shop in Hout Bay, Magan B nogal, and about the story, and she got a vision while I was talking. She stopped me. She said, Elizabeth, do you realize this is not only a book, it's a movie? And I looked at her as if she's completely, nuts. She said, I see a volcano, a big globe, a volcano at the top spewing out your lava, but the lava is the choice, and it's covering the whole world. So I said, whoa, well, this is huge, but thanks, let's get the book done first, and we'll see what God's got with the movie, But then don't forget, the rabbi always used to say to me when our story went belly up and I couldn't deny Jesus, he said, oh my goodness, Elizabeth, your story makes the Thornbirds, the movie, look like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
This makes a movie, so he was already thinking movie. And anyway, long story short, that vision that Fiona had, that day we met, it was on 9/11. And it was crazy because that day, that when we saw the planes going in, when we saw the news later on that day, the Lord spoke to Fiona again, and he said to her, today mayhem has been sown on the earth, but in that coffee shop I've planted a seed of hope. So I've known that the book is part of the journey, a huge part, because a movie you can only take, or a series, part of the book can you use on silver screen or now our series. So that's been what's goaded me, because you don't go into movie making for nothing or to make money or think it's a nice thing to do for fun. No, it is brutal industry, critical. People shred you, you lose money, you can become bankrupt. You don't go there unless, in our case, unless God is goading it forward. So we've just kept it with an open hand and said, Father, if this is you stick it together, because it is way bigger than Jamie and I could ever. Then you get the Martezes that come along, her leading the pack, where they just it's like a dog with a bone, and they won't let go. Yeah, like a little staffy. They will not, and we don't ask her to. I mean, we've hardly paid the poor darling, and she hangs in there because they know it's God.
Yes.
Even the director, our contract with him is completely over, like 3 years ago. He's still hanging in because he knows it's a story for now.
Yes.
And we've all known it'll come out at the appointed time for God, because it's a very controversial story. I'm finding my Hebraic roots. For Aaron, he's finding Jesus. Do you see how it'll freak out religious spirits from both walks of life?
Yeah.
Because you're challenging people's old mindsets and introducing truth. And at the first glance of truth, it can be very offensive, but once embraced, it brings life, So it offends both sides of God's family, blended family, but we know it'll be for such a time when he comes back, because there has to be the synergy. So I have no doubt, even with the world going crazy and travel and vaccines and not being able to travel, if it's God, we will get this movie made. The money will come. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
And with any one of us who have, I'm sure with this radio station, whatever, when it's God, the money follows it. It tracks you. God's will tracks you. You don't have to go and find it.
I mean, I always say to Hein, just put it in God's hands and then, and just relax and breathe. Because,
and then have fun. Go along for the ride, or else you don't want it.
Yeah.
Unless it's God.
Absolutely.
So I thank you, Martez, and I salute you, Jamie and I, because it's been such a joy. We've become like sisters, and yet it's such a...
Martez is such a joy. I mean,
you guys.
And you are such a joy. It's so, because we were talking about you, I think about a week ago. That's when I heard your story the first time of both you and Jamie. And thank you so much. I'm so honored that you can be on our show.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And you're on Kaapstad Radio. But and also, we can't wait for the movie. And once it's launched, and obviously, I will be invited.
Of course, you'll be on the red carpet.
Can't wait to see the movie. Yeah. I mean, just listening to your whole story while Martez was telling it, it brought tears to my eyes, goosebumps, and I love this story more than I love, the stepping stones to Jamie.
Absolutely. I mean, there definitely has to be the sequel where it will be all about you and Jamie, for sure.
Yeah, and that's another 5 sequels.
But I think everybody out there, if you want to know more about The Choice, you can go to the website. It is called campbellschoice.co.za. That is CAMPBELLS-choice.co.za. If you would like to order any of Liz's amazing books, you can email her at liz@campbellschoice.co.za, and that is again liz@campbells-choice.co.za.
What we will do is we'll also put it on our Kaapstad Radio website with the ad of the interview today.
Yeah.
Liz and Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, please come visit us again. And yes, what a joy it was to meet you. You're such characters, and you're such a lovely couple. And like I said, please come visit Martez and I very soon.
We definitely will, because just to prove to you that my wife has got guts, there's a parking lot outside here, and there's parking. So Liz was saying she's not one of those Christians that trust God for a parking lot. I thought, oh my word, she's definitely Jewish. Forget about the parking spot, just to get us the parking lot.
Thank you, guys. Do you want to say anything else, Martez?
I actually just wanted to say, Jamie, if you can give us a few final words to people out there in relationships, just a little bit of word of encouragement, of advice that you can give to people out there.
in 60 seconds. That's a challenge. I think it's very difficult. I just know that Liz was reading a book at the time about how to be a wife. And I know that lots of people out there experience men feel that they have to control and dominate, and there's this whole thing of the male culture dominating the female. But yet we are actually co-heirs in Christ. And like Jesus said, love, or Paul said, love your wife as Jesus loved the church. And I think that when women, as a man, I'm just saying, what really gives us the ability to love our wives is when our wives submit to us, not submission as in domination, but submission as I trust you and I respect you, and I will leave this with you. I've done about 21 weddings or couples that I've married. I think 90% or more are still married, so something good happened.
Yeah, that's good.
But what I want to share with you just very briefly, and that is that I believe marriage or relationships is like a table. The tabletop is God's agape love. God's agape love means His love in your heart. You can't love somebody truly if you don't have His love in your heart. It's for all the other types of love to manifest. The 4 legs are respect, trust, communication, and honesty. Now, if you think, if there's trust, respect, honesty, and communication, how can anything go wrong? Saturated with God the Father's love. And
Absolutely.
those are the pointers. Think about it. You'll realize you can only have a good relationship.
Yes.
And the biggest thing I find, I actually moved ahead with the divorce to protect my children at that point in time, not necessary anymore. But what really made me decide, and I said to my ex-wife, we need to part and move on because you don't respect me.
Yeah.
Without respect, you've got nothing.
Absolutely. I 100%. Once that is gone, and yeah, the loyalty and the all of the above. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure. Lovely being here.
That was in die kollig saam met my en Martez elke maandag hierso van 1:15 tot 2 toe. Ons het 'n bietjie langer aangegaan want vandag was it was just like an awesome interview. Thank you to Elizabeth and Jamie Campbell. Let's go listen to Madonna's Vogue.